Now, Tony Elumelu, you and I are active in Power Africa. We are trying to get more power investments in the continent. A lot of reforms have been done, but a lot of business people want to invest in the power sector, as they did in the telecom sector. Are still concerned that there are still more reforms which are needed to provide that business confidence, to provide that clarity that they can put their risk capital there, energy investments are long-term investments, 20, 25, 30 years. What, according to you, remains to be done for those investment flows to come?
So, last year when President Obama visited Africa, our group, the Heirs group, committed $2.5 billion towards the Power Africa initiative. And we have been able to deploy part of that because of what I'm going to share here, which should help to drive the implementation of this across Africa. One is that in the country we decided to start from, Nigerian government had a massive reform of the power sector. And that gave us the opportunity to acquire a major power asset. And when we acquired the power asset, it generated, the day we took over November 1 last year, the output was 150 megawatts of electricity. This morning, because I get daily report of output, this morning we generated 453 megawatts of electricity. So in just about 6-7 months, we have tripled the output. This is what the private sector can do. So learning from this, African governments, and I'm happy we have quite a number of African political leaders here, we have a role to play in helping to reform the power space. If we committed $2.5 billion and we didn't have the opportunity to make the investment, we wouldn't have invested it, and we wouldn't have been able to help to triple the power output in Nigeria the way we have done in a short period of time. One of our partners, Paul Hinks of Symbion Power, is here. We co-invested together in one of these plants. The second thing is the issue of policy stability. Our political leadership and both the executive and the regulatory arms need to understand that power investment is a long-term investment. You don't want to start the process as an investor and 1 year, 2 years down the line, the policies change. So if we want to drive power, increase in access to electricity across the continent, we need to make sure that we think through carefully our policies, and once we put in place those policies, we should just have to see them through so that the rational investors can plan rationally and expect no surprises. The third thing is the issue of regionalization or harmonization of power policies across the continent. As much as if we can't do that across the continent, at least let's follow the regional economic blocks or groupings and harmonize policies so that a power investor in Nigeria can move from Nigeria to Ghana to invest, and give or take certain issues you can predict the way these policies, the regulatory environment will play out. That we need, because we need to invest in countries and across borders to help improve access to electricity in Africa. The fourth point is the regulatory issue. It takes so long to get certain regulatory approvals. We succeeded in Africa, in Nigeria, where we started from, because of the reform that was put in place. So we need to ensure that you talk to many people, foreign investors in particular, they want to invest in power. Many private equity firms have raised a lot of money, but they cannot get good deals because it takes so long to close transactions on the continent. So we need to make sure we fast-track this. And still on regulatory part, our regulators should understand that the state and stage of the power sector development in Africa is still at its infancy. So the regulatory mindset to have that we should wear in Africa, if we must grow the power space, must be different from the regulatory mindset you wear in other parts of the world where access to electricity has significantly improved. Regulators must see themselves as developmental regulators. on the African continent if we must succeed in, I call it, democratizing power across Africa. And lastly, our governments need to help. We need to realize that incentives shape behavior. So if we have, like, tax, talking about tax, the right tax incentives, as we have in, like, where we do business now in Nigeria, we have 15-year tax holiday, so that encourages you to even invest more in such economy. So that will help. But let me say before closing that finance is key also. You know, power investment is a long-term investment. So the kind of money you need in power is long-term investment, not just short-term commercial overdraft facilities. And there are certain agencies, institutions that have a key role to play. I'm happy Kaberuka is here, he's playing a great role. The World Bank is supporting most of these initiatives also on the continent. We need to also have the American Senate and has passed the harmonized and passed the Electrify Africa bill. It will help significantly in improving access to electricity in Africa. And finally, again, to our political leadership and economic managers on the continent, we need to encourage domestic savings mobilization. So we need to encourage it, one, and two, we need to make sure that when we mobilize domestic savings, we channel them into these critical areas of needs, especially power. If you go to some countries, you have trillions of money already mobilized through the pension funds. But those funds are just there funding government treasury bills. It's not really helping to drive the infrastructure deficiency improvement that we need in Africa. So we need to look at it that mobilizing savings through pension funds is not an end on its own. It's a means to an end. The end is how you deploy that capital to grow what we need to fire the African economy. And I think a lot more can be said, but I know there's time constraint.
Thank you, Ton. Thank you so much. Ask each one of you if you have the last word.
3 quick ones. One is a call on as we have come to Washington, as we go back, it will be nice that very soon we hear about the Electrify Africa bill being passed. It will help to actually improve access to electricity in Africa. 2 is what Michael Bloomberg talked about in the morning about the issue of perception and reality. I'd like to urge the American public, not just people who are here, to open their minds a bit more and see Africa beyond the prison of war and those old narratives and messaging that characterized Africa 10, 20 years ago. And lastly, as we talk about partnership with the US and in fact with the rest of the world, we cannot ignore a key component of our society. Women represent over 50% of the African population, in fact 60%. And true inclusive growth cannot occur in Africa without carrying these people along. So let's also factor them in. Thank you.